I'm going to show you how to make my Irish beer bread. Well, actually, it's just a beer bread recipe, and we're using Irish beer, so I'm calling it, everything's all about the Irish today. So this is the easiest recipe. And it's one of my kind of go-tos, not just for St. Patty's Day, but if I'm making a big batch of soup at home or stew and I'm like, oh, I need a bread to go with it and I don't feel like running to get a baguette, this is my go-to. It is so quick and easy, and I just try and keep all the ingredients on hand. Now, one of the first things that it starts with, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this out of the oven, and I just want to let it rest before I slice it, but I just want to show you how pretty it is. The top was getting just a little bit brown, so I just covered it because I wanted to pull it out live, but I just want to show you how gorgeous this is and before I invert it and then start slicing it. I mean, how beautiful is this? So I'm just going to let it cool, and I'm going to show you how we made that. When it comes to bread, I love bread. So does my family, but I don't have time to let it rise and let it proof and do yeast and all that kind of stuff. So I have to find a way to pull warm bread out of the oven and make it easy, because there's nothing like warm bread out of the oven. So 4 ingredients that you're going to want to keep on hand. The first is self-rising flour. So this is going to be different probably than the flour that you have right now. It's not expensive at all. You're going to find it right at the grocery store near the regular flour. I always keep self-rising flour on hand at home. That way I can whip up this bread in no time. So the recipe calls for 3 cups of self-rising flour. Now, if you don't have self-rising flour, you could use regular flour and add to it baking powder, but you'd need to Google the amount of baking powder that you'd need for 3 cups of regular all-purpose flour. And I'm not exactly sure what that is because I use self-rising flour. Okay, then we're doing 1/4 cup of sugar. I've got my bread pan here, and I love baking spray because it's got the cooking spray and the flour right in here, and that way we know that that bread's going to come right out. I'm going to melt some butter. The recipe calls for a stick of butter. If you want to cut back on that, you certainly can. A few tablespoons of butter will also taste fantastic. You do need some of the butter, though, to put over the top because you want that to get really nice and golden brown. So up to a stick of butter, but you can just do a few tablespoons. You can do a half of a stick, but I just want to melt that. One of the things about this bread recipe is you really can't make it ahead of time as far as the batter. It has to be one of those things that, and you'll see why. Excuse me. Once you mix it together, it needs to get in the pan and right into the oven. Okay, butter melted. So 3 cups self-rising flour, 1/4 cup of sugar, and then a beer. I happen to have some Irish beer around. We used Irish beer to cook our corned beef and cabbage last week. Any type of beer would work. Just whatever you have on hand. But this has got the yeast and all that stuff in it, so that's why we don't need to worry about this rising. It's just it's a quick bread. So once that beer gets in there, I use a spatula and I gently mix it together. You don't want to use a mixer, you just want to do this by hand. And you want to combine it, but not over mix it. So once that flour gets mixed in there, we're done. I mean, I tell you, this is the easiest bread ever. And it's the dough is just, it'll just plop right out into your pan. Makes the house smell terrific when it's baking. Now, although it takes minutes to throw this bread together, this is going to take about 40 minutes to bake. You don't want to underbake it. 350, and I do a good 40 to 50 minutes. I'm just kind of spreading it out in the pan. And then you take that melted butter right over the top. Now, if you wanted to add some things to this bread, you could add to the batter maybe a little shredded cheddar cheese, maybe some cooked and crumbled bacon, maybe some fresh herbs. You could do maybe some, you know,
corned beef.
Anne said corned beef. Well, I'm not sure about that, but you could certainly add some chopped chives or scallions if you wanted to, add some more flavor. I think it's fantastic and best as is. It's very simple, very rustic, and it's going to go perfectly with your soups and stews and things like that. So this is going to go into the oven. We'll put it in right now. And out comes this gorgeous loaf of beautifulness. Sometimes you'll have to just kind of cut around, but look, no, we love these pans. Bread pans, they make wonderful. And then, I mean, is this a work of beauty or what? And you just slice it up, serve it with some extra butter, best warm, and I'm telling you, it's some of the best beer bread you have ever tasted. And we'll put the recipe on our website.